Hey everyone, welcome to your first reading of the course. The reading is a chapter called Culture, and it is from the book Cultural Anthropology, a Toolkit for the Global Age by Kenneth Guest. There's several editions of this book. We are using the 2017 edition of the reading. If you are somebody who prefers a hard copy over an electronic copy, there is a version of this book on reserve in the library. So you can head on over there and check it out for a little while and read the chapter with the hard copy in your hands, if you so wish. Okay, my goal here is to give a quick rundown of this chapter. So this is not meant as a full-on lecture that replaces the reading. It is simply a guide through the reading. I just want to cover why we're reading this and a few main concepts or outline, like basically just provide a short outline of the chapter so that you can pay attention to these key areas that I'm about to mention as you're tackling the reading. All right. So, why are we beginning with this chapter? Well, because our class is fundamentally about culture. It's a course in cultural studies, right? So we want to set a foundation for what is this thing? What is this thing that we even call culture? How has this concept been defined? How have people approached understanding it? What does it include? And how do we know that something's a culture? We're laying this foundation with this reading, which is a little bit, it's a longer reading, and then all the other readings further out in the quarter are shorter and lighter because we're doing the bulk of the work now, setting the theoretical foundation now, and then it's all downhill from here. So don't be discouraged or intimidated when you see that this is like a 25-30 page chapter. I don't expect you to cling on to every word of this chapter. I just want you to come away with the meat of it, some main concepts. So let me help guide you through it. The author defines culture as a shared set of beliefs, patterns of behavior, and it includes all sorts of things, material aspects like clothing, like even this mug could be a part of material culture. Culture is such a broad thing that in anthropology we've actually had a pretty difficult time defining it exactly. So this is just a working definition, is that it's a shared system of beliefs and patterns and knowledge, and it includes things like norms and values and symbols, right? So already you can see so much going on in just this one sentence definition. The author then goes on to break it up. And he says, look, every culture is going to have certain characteristics, right? So let's think about what the key characteristics of culture are. One, it's not biological. So you're not born with a culture, just like you're not born with the ability to speak, right? And language is a really big part of culture. You're not born with the ability to speak a language, any particular language. It's something that has to be taught and learned. Same for culture as a whole. Culture is something that's taught and learned. That's the first aspect. The process of learning and teaching is called enculturation. Culture is something that's highly symbolic. We rely on symbols to know what's important to us, right? So think about some symbols around you. Flags are a symbol. Clothing can be a symbol. It can be a symbol of class. It can be a symbol of your religious beliefs. It can be quite symbolic in lots of ways. You could literally be writing your political slogans on clothing to be symbolic. Colors can be symbolic. So culture is taught and learned, it's symbolic, it's shared. A really important aspect of culture is that it's shared. You really cannot have a culture of one person. You can be as unique a person as you want to be, but ultimately that sense of self is built upon what you know of your broader culture. So culture is a systemic thing that's shared with multitudes of others. It forms community. You form community around a culture and familiarity. Does this mean that you're exactly the same as everybody else? No, of course not. Another really important part about culture is that it's fluid. It never stays the same. You can see that right now. Did you think that, I don't know, did people 50 years ago think that they could go to school like this? That school culture could be like this, digital, technological, not face to face, right? So culture makes advances, it moves in different directions, and it never stands still. It's not static, it's fluid, it's always changing. There was a time when people may not have imagined having a woman for a teacher, right? But those cultural values shifted. Culture is made up of things like norms and values and rules, and we negotiate these according to our place in history, according to our time, according to the political pressures we're under, and according to our environment, our environmental pressures, and all kinds of different factors that go into moving culture. So, culture is shared, but it is also contested, as the author is going to tell you. So what does it mean to be contested? It means that not everybody's okay with the things the way that they are all the time. Sometimes people aren't okay with it. They argue over symbols. They argue over values and norms. They say, maybe this isn't the way it should be. Well, I think differently. We think differently. And once enough people contest something in a culture, culture may begin to shift. So far we've covered culture is not biological, it's taught and learned. It is symbolic, it is shared but contested, and it includes this broad spectrum of things like languages, material cultures, and so on and so forth. Another important concept you should think about when you're tracking the reading is mental maps of reality. It's a super important concept that the author mentions, and it is basically an idea that we construct. It's a socially constructed idea of the types of places and things that exist in the world. So I'm sitting here in Seattle, and somebody might just mention the word Iraq to me. Instantly, ideas have been conjured up in my head. Where is this place called Iraq vis-a-vis where I am? Who are the people who live there? What does the landscape look like? Well, I've never been there. So how is my head filling all of this stuff in? Through the mental maps of reality that have been constructed culturally. What the heck does that mean, constructed culturally? Well, it means that through cultural institutions such as the media, such as the government, or through technology like meeting people online, I've developed certain ideas about what Iraq might be as a place and who Iraqis are, right? So I haven't been there and I have no firsthand knowledge, yet I've got this map constructed in my head of what and where and how, right? So that's what mental maps of reality are. The chapter then has a pretty lengthy section on, it profiles various theorists, sociologists, and so on, who have offered up their idea of how to study culture and what culture is. It talks about past theories such as unilineal cultural evolution. Please pay attention to that. It talks about structural functionalism. Importantly, it talks about ideas of ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Ethnocentrism is using your own culture or whatever's familiar to you to pass judgment on or evaluate a different culture. So it would be like saying, I don't know, I think eating with a fork and spoon is hygienic. Why do people in India use their hands to eat? Gross. That's just gross. Or it's perfectly fine to slaughter a cow and eat it, but oh my God, do they eat dogs over there? That's terrible. Oh, did you say they eat spiders and bugs? Disgusting. That's ethnocentric. It means that what is normal to you is defining your idea of what everything that is good and right and should be, and then what is unfamiliar to you is deemed as weird. So your book will tell you about a guy named Franz Boas, who was a Jewish immigrant and who is the father of American anthropology. And he said, wait, hold on. Maybe this is not the way to evaluate other cultures. Maybe the purpose of anthropology should be to appreciate human difference and to understand human difference so we can recognize that people are different, eat different things, dress differently, and maybe we just should not intervene or pass any type of negative judgment on that. So this idea of appreciating or understanding a different culture based on its own history and its own context is called cultural relativism, and it's attributed to Franz Boas, who knew something about being treated as different as an immigrant to the United States. So these are just a few of the ideas that are discussed in the book. Please do give it a more thorough read. The chapter ends with this question: how much of who we are is by birth and based on our biology and our hardwiring, and how much of it is based on our culture? That's an interesting section, and I hope that you will read it. I'm just going to leave it hanging there like a teaser so you can go figure out the answer from the reading. Once you're done with the reading, please head over to the discussion boards to write your 1 to 2 page reflection on this chapter. If there are any parts that were too much, couldn't understand, were challenging, this is the place to mention it. Say, here's what I did understand and take away, and here's where I need some help. Now, when you're writing your post, don't just rehash the things that I said in this video. You must go deeper than what I said. If you're going to write about the concept of ethnocentrism that I've just talked about, say something more than what I have said in the video so that you're demonstrating knowledge of having done the reading. You're not demonstrating knowledge of having watched this video. You're demonstrating knowledge of, hey, I actually went in there and read the chapter and here's what I got out of it. So your discussion board is really going to be the place where you demonstrate your knowledge of this reading. This video was just intended as a helpful guide to have you focus on a few key aspects of it. But tell me more about those key aspects and what you learned from the reading. Okay, if you've got any questions, shoot me a message on Canvas inbox. It's always the best way to get a hold of me. All right, talk soon.